Good evening. It's 8 o'clock, and it's so nice to have an excuse to not be drunk. Although I'm not sure this is it.
No.
Having one sip of wine, and then we're gonna talk. So, welcome back to Booked It. We are here with guests, which I realize people may not recognize you if they've only listened to the podcast and not seen the YouTube channel. So, I'd like to introduce Pete Mento. I'm realizing again, this happens every time I introduce you. I have no idea what the fuck you do.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Can you just say it in a sentence? Because I do this every time.
Sure. My main job is acting as the economic advisor to Booked It. But when I'm not doing that, I'm the managing director for customs and trade for a monolithically large tax firm.
Great.
Yeah, and my background is focused almost entirely on economics and how it plays with global trade, customs and duties, and the taxes associated with it.
And I'm Nate. I sing and dance for a living.
How much yoga does one have to do to be able to sit in that position for as long as you do?
That's what somebody asked me that yesterday. I mean, I'm just laying down. I was joking. I said, I'm actually in a plank. I'm in a plank position for 30 minutes. I would look a lot hotter if I could do that, and I can't. So the body does not really respond accordingly to that. I mean, no. So, okay, we wanted to have you on. First of all, this is our first time doing anything Booked It related via Zoom because we're all isolated.
We are.
But I wanted to have you on here to just, as usual, shed some light into our tiny theatrical bubble about what's going on. So let me just tell you about my own personal experience with. We're going to start small and just talk about very specifically the New York unemployment hotline. So initially, they were making about the majority, not everybody, the majority of people needed to fill out a claim online, which I did. And then you had to call in to speak to a representative. And there were about 6 middle-aged women working there. Not middle-aged. 6 95-year-old women were working at the unemployment office. And there were 800,000 people that needed to speak to a representative. So am I painting the picture well?
Yeah, I have this image of a number of sloth-like creatures, lots of beehive hairdos, people smoking at their desks. That's sort of what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
By the way, when I said 8 middle-aged women, I realize that sounds completely sexist, and I apologize. I don't mean that. I just mean I just pictured them short little women. But
it's very important that the non-straight gentleman who works in theater says things like that when we have these conversations.
But I'm just saying, why couldn't one of the people working there be trans? So
probably are.
Okay, so you have to call to get a representative. So there were 800,000 people trying to get in touch with about 6 different telephone operators, which I think I pictured it as like 1938, like the switchboard, like people are like, plug, hello, operator. I mean, it was like, first of all, when you call, you get a busy signal. Like, when is the last time you have heard, I didn't even know that sound existed.
How many hours do you think you spent just trying to get a person on the phone?
Oh God, many. I don't know. I mean, people had more patience than I did. I mean, I would try for a couple hours a day. And I mean, people spend 8 hours a day for weeks.
And I'm going to assume that there were only certain hours of the day that you could do this, right? It wasn't 24 hours.
8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So for a while, I was waking up 7:58. I was like setting an alarm and then watching the world clock. And as it hit 8 o'clock, I was like, call. I said I was like the guy from Lost in the cave hitting the button over. I mean, it was like I was like, what am I doing? So people were out of their minds, and it was all. I mean, and also, I mean, for some people, this was an emergency to get rid of
absolutely.
Like, I mean, I'm as much as I'm laughing about this, I'm like, there were a lot of people that needed to get through to those 6 transgender phone operators in order to get a paycheck. I mean, so it's as much as we're sort of making light of it, it's not that funny. So then several weeks into this, after I get a call from the automated system that basically says, you don't, they're like, stop calling. They're like, we will call you. They're like, and I was like, thank God. I'm like, it's a miracle. They didn't give any time, any day. It just says, we'll call you.
After how many days?
Weeks.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
4 weeks of trying to call it. This was a month in. So then they're like, call. I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, okay, so I don't have to call it anymore. But they don't say, they're just like, we'll call you. It's sort of like, meeting the guy at a bar who's like, I'll call you. Like, he's like, I think I have your number. Okay.
Now you know what I'm going to ask you. Has the phone rang? Have they called you?
So here's what happened.
Has your sugar daddy texted you yet and said they're going to ring you?
Okay. So I was carrying the phone around for about 4 days, waiting for it to ring. And by the way, 24 hours a day, because now I don't know when they're going to call. It could be anytime. I took a shower, and I'm not kidding. I was in the shower for 90 seconds, and I came out, and it said missed call. And I was like, no, I was like out like in this front yard, fist to the sky. No. An actual woman, an actual person left a message and said, I'm sorry, this is the Department of Labor. We're sorry I miss you. We will call you back. You can't call in here, but like we will we will get back to you. So now I've been carrying around the phone. I'm like, going for a run with the phone out. I'm in the car, practically driving off the side of the road with the phone in front of me. Still waiting. It's like waiting for Godot. It could be forever.
What does that mean, Nate? Waiting for Godot.
That's a play by Samuel Beckett where these 2 guys are sitting in front of a tree and like they're just they're waiting for some guy named Godot. Like the whole it's very existentialist, and I'm not an expert on it, but like they're like sitting around waiting for some guy. And I think it's supposed to be a play on waiting for God. But it's just about sort of just waiting, about these 2 guys just sitting there waiting for some guy to come and save them.
The next time we hang around theater people and people say what I do for a living is boring, I just want to remind you that something called waiting for Godot is something I'm supposed to know about.
It's not only you're supposed to know about it, I'm pretty sure boring as shit if you ever have to watch it. Okay. So anyway, point is unemployment. It's like, this is 800,000 people, I think, we're trying to get through. It's a disaster. I mean, like it's a full on disaster. And I personally, thank God, I'm not like, I had something to eat tonight. I ate dinner tonight. Like right. I can get my groceries. There are people that can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's important that we keep that attitude about all this. And part of what you and I constantly do is try to keep things light because our lives are dark and sad and lonely and pathetic. So we make light of everything.
And that was the case before the coronavirus.
Right. Yeah. But there are a lot of people that are mightily suffering. And I think for the most part, what I see on the news all the time is people trying to say, we all understand that you're suffering, while somebody with a makeup job that someone probably got paid $200 to do is looking into the high def camera, waiting to get back in their town car to go back to their $5 million apartment.
Right.
People are in really bad shape. It's the numbers are shocking. So for every 100,000 people out of work, you're going to have 10 people die. Is a great way to look at those numbers. And those are statistics that have stood the test of time. So for every 100,000 new people that lose jobs, you're going to have about 10 new people that die every month. And that could be for any number of reasons. The number of people right now that are unable to pay their bills, the trickle down effect of that, when the guy that can't pay his mortgage on the rental unit that he's not getting rent for, that can't pay his bills. Most apartments are not owned by big corporations. They're owned by individuals.
Right.
So it's a terrifying thing. And we've had conversations about your industry. And that's, it is such a complex world. The way that the money flows into it, how it's a very specific group of people that tend to spend a lot of money. It's cyclical. When there are shows that just they're always going to make money, but there are shows that make their bread and butter and make their survival on certain times of the year. And I'm very concerned for Broadway. I'm not going to sit here and paint it any other way. And as a guy who's spending a tremendous amount of time on the phone trying to reassure people the economy is going to come back, when I talk to business people and say the fall is a reasonable time to expect it, they get excited. But I say it to people in comedy, people in music, and people in theater. They're apoplectic.
Well, it's also, I mean, I think it's safe to say, I don't think this is an exaggeration, that theater will probably be one of the last things that returns to any sense of normalcy. It'll be much easier for other things to go back to normal. Like if you have like a retail store, it's much easier to be like, yeah, you can come in and shop at a shoe store, but we have guidelines about how to do it. Like there's no way to do that in theater. You can't fill a theater with people without having someone coughing next to you.
Do you think you're going to have 6 feet apart from everybody? Like it'll be like when you go to Target and there's a square that you have to stand on and wait for your turn.
Yeah, that'll be really great for comedy shows too, to have people.
Yeah.
I mean, anything. It would be horrible. I mean, I do believe that there is going to be a day that we will see a filled Broadway theater again, and we won't be in panic mode. You know, whether that means after there's a vaccine or after there's treatment for this, that like people can safely and comfortably go see a show. But I do believe it's going to take a second. This isn't happening overnight. Because even we were joking that even just say they're like, okay, Broadway, July 1st, it's open. It's the magical day. Who the hell is risking getting the coronavirus to go see The Lion King? Like, wouldn't you be like, if Broadway, even I would be like, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to let a few other people test it out and see how that goes, and then I'll consider seeing it. Oh, okay, no one got the coronavirus at Phantom of the Opera. I'll go see it. You know, who is going to be in that first? Like, who's going to go to the first show back?
Let me ask you a more pointed question. Are actors and musicians and people in tech, are they going to go rushing back for their jobs? Or are they going to be afraid to go back to work? And what are your unions going to say about all that stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, everybody wants to go back to the show for sure. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not dying to be crammed into an orchestra pit right this week. You know what I mean? Like that would feel like I'm scared to go to the grocery store right now. Can you imagine with people not even anywhere near me? Can you imagine you got a French horn player sitting next to you?
And the musicians, I would imagine, are probably in more of a dangerous position than anyone else because you are on top of each other.
I mean, not really any more than actors would be, I think. I mean, you know, on a stage, and I mean, think about like a musical doing choreography. Like, you can't get more on top of each other than that. I think the only way that it's going to happen is when we can all just be like, you can't really social distance in an orchestra pit, and you can't social distance in a kick line.
Sure. Are the unions being proactive? Have they been able to give any financial relief?
I don't. Yes, a little bit. I don't think it's anywhere nearly as much as people want or hope for. The unions were able to pay for 4 weeks of pay, but I mean, that would be fine if Broadway was reopening in 4 weeks.
Sure.
Even 8 weeks. But it's like, that's not going to work when Broadway reopens in the fall, you know? Yeah. So the question is too, like, how do we also figure out any sense of normalcy with the Broadway scene? Like, it's no matter when it reopens, whether it's the fall or in 15 years, the first few months of the reopening are going to be slow. And we just have to sort of build, that's just going to be inevitable. So it's going to be a matter of, you know, I mean, look, do you equate this at all with after 9/11 when people weren't hopping on airplanes unless they had to, that the rest of September, October, November, like they were doing mandatory travel, but nobody was taking a voluntary trip anywhere unless they had to, right?
Yeah, and this is much bigger than that. So let's have a conversation about that. So, well, first of all, you shouldn't be afraid to fly on a plane. If you're planning on taking a trip to New York for whatever reason, not that you should be taking trips anywhere, but if you're, the plane is one of the safest places you could be. The air is recirculated. Now I would wipe down every surface around me. But one thing I can tell you from all of the conversations I have and all the phone calls I'm on, they're very clean environments. It's just the surfaces and being around people in airports.
Yeah.
But businesses all over America are realizing, a lot of businesses are realizing a significant amount of the travel that they do is completely unnecessary. And there's a lot of things about Broadway in particular that these realizations, I was thinking about this when you said, let's do a Zoom tonight. The number of times that I've taken a client to a Broadway show because they're in New York for whatever bullshit reason they're in New York is preposterous. The number of times that I've gotten tickets for whatever show because one of my clients who I love is there with their wife for a long weekend and they happen to be in town on Thursday or Friday. And I drop big money to go to some ridiculous dinner because somebody from Omaha or Indiana or Illinois is in town. I'm not exaggerating, Nate. That's happened like 50, 60 times.
I believe you. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm one guy. So how many other people that are in finance, that are in banking, that are in investing, that do that? And then the other half of that will be what percentage of the demographic of serious Broadway musical theater consumer is over the age of 62?
A lot.
And how many of them are going to feel comfortable going back into a situation?
I mean, that's a great question, and you're correct. Also, not only that, a lot of these long-standing shows, Phantom, Lion King, Wicked, they rely on almost entirely on international tourists. These people have to be coming in from Asia and Europe primarily to come see these shows. Like, if the international tourism goes down, Phantom of the Opera has been running since 1987, I think, either 87 or 88. This is the first time that could be in jeopardy since then, that international tourists may not want to fly to New York just to go visit,
Well, and that leads me to the hardest question of all. Broadway tickets are outrageously expensive. And I've always wondered how much of that is a desire for significant profits and how much of that is because of the cost of the production. And is this a time when your industry is going to do what every industry other than theater seems to do and says, in order for us to maintain our dominance, in order for us to maintain a position, we're going to have to put on productions that are of a quality. I'm not going to say the same quality because I don't think it's possible, but of quality at a lower cost in order to be able to keep people coming. Because if you're going to honestly think people are going to drop $200, it's not realistic.
So that's a great point. I was saying this before the coronavirus, before any of this happened. The ticket prices are getting high, right? They're getting really high. And we have shows like Hamilton where people are spending $8,000 or something ridiculous a ticket. Dear Evan Hansen is crazy high. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now to even compete in the market of Broadway, to hold your own, the ticket prices have to be that high. And I kept saying, when are the audiences going to say, nah, I'm good. Like, I'll pay $200 for Hamilton, but I won't pay $200 for whatever new show. Like, when does the audience just say, I'm sorry, like, that's just not good enough anymore? Like, because the prices were going up and up and up. And I was like, guys, if the prices keep going that high, we better accommodate in something really spectacular quality wise. And I'm not sure we always do that. And I was just like, we're going to hit a tipping point. And then this happened. So in some weird way, this did that for us anyway.
Well, I'm going to take the side of the producer. And again, this is just me speculating. Okay. But I would imagine that theater is a lot like the pharmaceutical industry. And bear with me for a second, because I can hear everybody rolling their eyes at the fat money guy right now. But think of it this way. Okay. How many times does someone try to mount a Broadway production and it goes nowhere? A lot. often.
Very
right?
often, yes.
So it's a speculation. It's an investment. So you've got to make money on the ones that make it because you've put so much money into the ones that don't, which is a lot like the pharmaceutical industry, which is why many times, medical accomplishments like pharmaceuticals and medical devices, you have to put them in the market at prices that seem astronomical because you have to recoup the research you put into things that didn't make it. So I wonder how many times they've got to recoup their profits because so many other things have failed. And I don't know. I honestly have no idea. The other thing that I would say is the productions that are going out there that are being made. Do Broadway audiences need these high productions, this high production value to get them interested in the product? Is that necessary? And how much of production costs are actors, music, costumes, and how much of it is the show,
Right.
jazz hands,
Exactly.
and how much is the show, jazz hands. The other thing I would put out there is you and I had one of the weirdest, most awesome conversations we've ever had when I was in New York. I don't know, back in January. I had just come back from London, so when Hamilton sold to the recording to Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, so why Disney has not released that now eludes me. You have people watching a 7-part miniseries about some gay meth head and his tigers. It has captured the nation.
Right.
If you put that Hamilton video right now on Disney Plus,
oh my God,
it would break the internet.
Of course it would.
So think of all the other things. And honestly, I don't know what the deal is as far as the way the contract went, but wouldn't actors and musicians and orchestrators and everyone else, isn't there a paycheck in there for them with the...
In theory, yeah, there should be. I think there was a whole recent issue. The Musicians Union has been in an argument regarding streaming rights for musicians. This has been a very, very serious point of contention because there was a lot of debate going on about whether or not musicians will be paid appropriately for streaming content, because this is obviously a new territory and there hasn't always been language about it. So that's a whole complicated, separate issue. I mean, but yeah, musicians are fighting for that because, streaming is possibly going to be a big thing. The thing is, though, people keep saying in the theater, they're like, what if is streaming just going to replace Broadway? And I'm like, no one really likes it. No one likes it as a substitute for Broadway. Like no one, it's just not. And I feel very confident of if one thing, that streaming will not replace live theater. It just won't. We can't. It won't happen.
My daughter this weekend was all excited. She's a 14-year-old theater nerd because God is punishing me. And she's a very good mother. That's probably why. So I pick her up from my ex-wife on Friday and we're driving back and she says, hey, did you see this thing where John Krasinski set it up so that the Hamilton people sang live for this little girl who didn't get to see Hamilton? I said, yeah, it was pretty awesome. She said, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad I got to see Hamilton and everything. And, and I said, well, we had tickets to go see 6, but this coronavirus. So she's like, so let me get this straight. I don't get to go to Mardi Gras because I got sick. And then I don't get to go to 6 because everybody else got sick. And I said, yeah. She said, this sucks. Everything sucks. This year sucks. I wanted to see that. Now she has heard every song. She has seen video of all kinds of crap. She's obsessed with the show. She is so mad. She spent all of Friday night pouting, right? I couldn't agree with you more. There's like a whole generation now of people, whatever they are, Zoomies or whatever they're calling them, these little, self-centered snots that we're raising, that are really into theater.
Yeah.
And
it became really cool recently.
Yeah. So I think that you're going to have a generation that will really appreciate live theater, but also wants to be exposed to it through technology. And you guys, if you're not being paid for that, that is a crime against art.
No, I think we will be. I think we have to be. And there's been very serious fights in favor of that. Just to end our session for this, it's went so unbelievably quickly. I want to talk all night. However, just tell us quickly what happened about the Social Security, not Social Security.
The checks.
The checks. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are being done to help people right now. As an example, for those of you who are independent contractors, you should be talking to your accountant about taking advantage of the CARE Act, trying to find ways to your independent contractors, which means there could be small business opportunities for you to get loans and to get grants. And for those of you who have employees, you should absolutely be looking into this because there could be even more there. But there's also the stimulus checks. And I checked my numbers today. There were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.2 million checks that are going to go out at $1,200 a piece to people who are dead. or they're at least going to go out to their families. And here's why.
People that died not this week.
Not this week. No. To people who paid their taxes for the year 2018 and then died after, because the stimulus checks are based on the 2018 tax rolls.
Did we do the math on how much extra money that is? So, let's say it's $1,200 a person.
I'll do it for you now.
So $1,200 a person.
Yep.
Times.
That's 2.5 billion. Now here's the way I want to look at it. Okay.
$1 billion to dead people.
Here's the way I want to look at it. Odds are that money was direct deposited for the most part into joint accounts of people who lost a loved one.
Good.
Okay.
Good. So they're getting paid for their deceased husband or something.
Or wife. Yeah. Now there are also children that have died that are mixed in there, and it's not 1,200, it's 500. But I'm not going to sit here and do the math. I could do it. I would be doing it all night long, and I would find it oddly comforting because I'm strange and weird. But yeah, imagine that. The amount of fraud is insane.
It's insane. Next time you're on, we will do. This conversation could have gone on for literally 5 years. So we just sort of we tip of the iceberg tonight. Next time we will come up with other things that you could spend $2.5 billion on besides people who aren't living.
Yeah.
Pete Mento,
it's insane.
Thank you so much. You are divine. Be safe. I'm going to be one of the social justice warriors that says, stay home.
Stay home. Wash your hands, people.
Wash your hands.
Wash your
fucking
hands.
Not necessary. All right.
See ya.
All right, bye.